Good afternoon to everybody. I can't help but keep thinking as I hear the stories about Yuri and learning more and more about him, just how lucky we all were to have had him in our lives. My name's Rob Inazzo, and I was his financial advisor for over 20 years. I've had the pleasure and privilege of knowing him with that type of relationship. Began as a financial advisor and client and evolved into a close and caring friendship. Whenever he would call, he would always ask, how was I doing? How was business? And every now and then, was I ever going to get married? I would always tell him, Yuri, when I did get married, he would know about it because he would be invited. Every Christmas, he'd show up with a little gift for me and my assistant, along with a heartfelt card. When I told him I wanted to buy a new digital camera, he couldn't do enough for me. Nobody knew cameras like Yuri. He brought me magazines to look through, and when I thought I was really ready to buy one, he met me at Walmart down in Norwalk to help me make the final decision. At one of our meetings at Merrill Lynch, I had just moved into a new office and didn't have any pictures hanging on the wall. A couple of days later, Yuri shows up with a picture to hang on the wall. People fleeing the planet Earth. I looked at it. Didn't quite get it, but it was such a heartfelt moment for Yuri. I still have that picture, and I always will. Years ago, I used to grow tomatoes in my backyard, and when I knew he was coming in, I'd bring a bag of tomatoes in for him. He one time went and picked some tomatoes himself and arranged them just so, and took a picture of them and gave it to me. So many memories over the years. It seems like only yesterday he and Mrs. Breier were coming into the office to review their account. It was so obvious how much he loved her. He was always so sweet, loving, and caring towards her. It was absolutely wonderful to see. In closing, I'd like to say, Yuri, you were a great friend and a loving and caring guy. You may have left us, but we will never forget you.
Hi, my name is Warren Brown. I knew Yuri for many, many years at Lycoming. One of the privileges of old age is that we're allowed to reminisce and everyone else is forced to listen. I'll try to keep it very short so nobody goes to sleep. Yuri and I had somewhat similar careers over the years. We both loved to fly. We both built model airplanes when we were kids. We both flight instructed at different times. Yuri flying Dakotas, I believe, in the Middle East and North Africa, what we call C-47s. And I flew with the 8th Air Force out of England over Germany during the war. Our planes were B-17s, incidentally. Yuri worked, as Ted mentioned, out there in the fuel control section for a while he was itching to get back in the air again. It must have been a little frustrating for him. Eventually, when I transferred over from flight test to Warren Bloomfield's Marine and Industrial Group, Yuri took my place over there. I hoped that I would help him get back in the air again. I talked to Dr. Albert, our director, and recommended Yuri. One short memory that I have of Yuri was one evening after work, we both went flying in the Flying Club airplane, and they had newly installed at the airport what they called a VASI system, which stood for Visual Approach Slope Indicator. It was a system of lights that they mounted about a third of the way down the runway from the approach end on the left-hand side with red and white lights in horizontal lines. If you were below the slope for the proper approach, it showed the red lights only showed. If you were above it, and would probably have to make a go-around, and they showed all white. So anyway, we went out flying, and first time around the pattern as it was getting dusk, Yuri said, "Warren, what do you see ahead?" I said, "I see the runway boundary lights." And he said, "What else?" I said, "Well, there's a cluster of lights up there to the left, red and white, but I can't make much out of it." He said, "Damn it, Warren, that's what I've been trying to talk to you about." I'd like to read a poem that was one of the favorites of mine, which I think Yuri probably would have enjoyed if he had had the opportunity. It's called High Flight, and it was by a 19-year-old American volunteer that flew with the RAF a year and a half before the United States entered the war, before Pearl Harbor. He was killed on his, shortly after his 19th birthday over England, flying a Spitfire. And this is it. He said, "Oh, I have slipped the surly bonds of earth and danced the skies on laughter-silvered wings. Sunward I've climbed and joined the tumbling mirth of sun-split clouds and done 100 things you have not dreamed of either, wheeled and soared and swung, high in the sunlit silence hovering there. I've chased the shouting wind along and flung my eager craft through footless halls of air. Up the long, delirious burning blue, I've topped the wind-swept heights with easy grace, where never lark or even eagle flew. And while with silent lifting friend mind I've trod the high untrespassing sanctity of space, put out my hand and touched the face of God." Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bob Wagman, co-worker and student of Uri's. There's an old saying, that is, there are bold pilots and there are old pilots. There are no old, bold pilots. I think Uri was the exception. I mean, you could say that he was old, 92. But when I last saw Uri, probably a year ago, I'm sorry to say, but it was about then, his hearing was compromised, but his eyes sparkled, his grin was as big as ever, his laugh as hearty as ever. The numbers really didn't mean anything. Uri was a young man, I'm sure, right till the end. If you define bold as being careless and taking unnecessary chances, that would be. If you define it as taking calculated risks to achieve a specific purpose, that was yours. So I think he fit the mold, at the same time not fitting it, but we all knew him for what he was, a very disciplined man. I can remember when I was learning to fly, I had advanced from the old Piper G3, was now flying the Piper Tri-Pacer. And we flew during lunch hour. We're in the plane, went through the pre-flights, and Uri asked, as he does, "Check the oil?" "Yeah, it's full." What's the fuel? I said, it's full. He said, how do you know? I said, well, the gauge says so. Well, how do you know the gauge is working? Well, I called flight service 2 hours ago and asked them to take care of the airplane. They must have done it because the gauge says it's full. I knew where this conversation was going. We shut down the aircraft. I went to the hangar, grabbed a ladder, up on the wing, peered into the tank, yelled, Uri, it's full. He said, good, let's go flying. He'd have to say another word. The message was graphic and complete. You just don't take chances. See it for yourself. I don't know Yuri for more than 50 years. And in spite of that fact, I don't know how well I knew him. He seldom talked about himself. We talked about a lot of things, but he would never talk about his experiences wherever they were. It was just by happenstance that I was at a neighborhood get-together in my town of Norwalk, talking to a fellow who I knew had been a pilot. And it turned out he had flown for El Al. I said, that's interesting. I'm just starting to take flying lessons, and my instructor's an Israeli. Oh, what's his name? Uri Breier. Uri, is he in this country? Didn't know. Well, he then told me that El Al, when it first started, was all flown by expats, Americans, and maybe some Brits, and maybe some others. But Uri was the first Israeli to be the captain on El Al. So chalk up another first for Uri. Couldn't miss the opportunity to get Uri on the phone to talk to my friend Hal. When I called Uri, it was a Sunday afternoon. I could tell the sound of his voice, which got very stiff. I could plot his thinking. He was thinking. He must have broken an airplane, buzzed the tower, did something that was unforgivable breach of etiquette. When I said, Uri, someone wants to talk to you, that didn't make him feel any better, I'm sure. But when Hal got on the phone, and they talked for a little while, reminisced a little bit, and I'm sure made the standard agreement that one day we got to get together and have a cup of coffee. I don't know if that ever took place, but it was because of Hal, who was Uri's instructor way back when, that I got to know a little bit more about Uri. Finally, Uri had a pretty good sense of humor, frequently at my expense, but he had a good sense of humor. Early in my flying, on the Piper J3, we were doing touch and goes. And I must admit, a couple of these touchdowns, I kind of stressed the airplane a little bit. We bounced kind of hard. But the last one coming in, I thought I did a pretty good job, just a couple of small bounces. And we were completing the rollout, and Uri turned around to say something to me, and he must have seen the rather satisfied look on my face, and he said, that may have been an arrival, but it sure as hell wasn't a landing. And so, Uri, I'm sure your takeoff from planet Earth was as smooth as usual, and you breezed the landing on cloud runway number 009. And today, you're probably going to be flying with us to the Angels, but we all miss you. And it's been both a Hebrew salutation, which we all know it is l'chaim, to life. The one you had, the one you're going to have, and also to your family. Life with all. Thank you.
This is a little bit low for me. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Arnold Angerman, and I'm, excuse me, an ex-AFCO Lycoming Textron employee. I have a little experiment for you this morning, or this afternoon, and that is to search your mind for someone who is not related to you, but who has had a profound impact on your life. Now, this individual, again, should not be related to you. And when I search my mind, I come up with Yuri Breier. Yuri Breier is my mentor. My career with AFCO, like Coming, started in 1960. I found a job in the purchasing department as an expediter. When I learned that there was a flying club across the street at the airport, I immediately, of course, became very interested because I was a pilot and I've had some experience with flying clubs in the past. So I immediately ran over to the airport to find out what was going on. Yuri Breier, of course, was the president of what we call the Nutmeg Flying Club. I became very involved with the flying club business, particularly at that time maintenance, and through the maintenance of the aircraft which the club had, I became, of course, familiar with Yuri Breier. At that time, we had a Tri-Pacer, which was a fabric-covered aircraft. I still remember the number. It was 844 Alpha, and there was a Cessna 140, which was 76041. Yuri helped me prepare for my flight instructor's rating. We would fly together. He would share his experiences and prop me up, get me tuned up for my flight test as a flight instructor. Yuri never charged me, for that time. Although Yuri was a frugal individual, he never charged me for the flight instructor. In 1963, after being in purchasing for about 4 years, I became a little antsy and was looking for another career change. And there were openings in field service. Ray Money was the manager at that time, and I know Yuri put in a good word for me to get me into that department. Of course, field service was a traveling job, and unfortunately it took me away from flying for a while. But again, Yuri was very instrumental in getting me that job. That job afforded me the opportunity to serve my country as a civilian in Vietnam for 1 year. And that was with the 1st Cavalry Division, which was all aviation. It had the UH-1 helicopters, and they were all powered by the T-53 gas turbine engine, which we built.